because Edomites were the first ones to create these weapons. Du is well liked by armed forces because it is twice as dense as lead, and when fused with metal alloys, it can be made into highly effective armor-piercing weapons such as the M242 gun mounted on the U.S. Army's Bradley fighting vehicle. Du is also used in armor plating to protect vehicles such as the U.S. Army's Abrams tank. Du ordnance has been employed in the 1991 Gulf War and in conflicts in Bosnia, Serbia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Slovakia. In a twisted way, use of Du makes perfect sense. After all, Du is plentiful, and with so much radioactive waste stored around the globe and no safe place to store it, Du is a ready and cheap source of material for the ordnance of war. The problem is, when Du armor-piercing projectiles penetrate their targets, they become incendiary, spewing radioactive dust. The Physicians for Social Responsibility said in a brief about depleted uranium, the fact that Du is aerosolized on impact with its target and is transformed into small dust particles capable of being carried by the wind may threaten air, ground, and water resources. So not only do Edomites destroy the people on the planet, you destroy the planet itself, which all may become long-term repositories for Du. Long-term impact is especially important considering the 4.5 billion year half-life of Du. The International Coalition to Ban Uranium Weapons, an alliance of non-governmental organizations, and some countries are seeking a worldwide ban on the production and military use of depleted uranium weapons, but other countries around the world, some of which also have Du weapons in their arsenal, downplay or deny the hazards to Du and claim there is no proven long-term hazard to the use of Du weapons, such as the US downplaying the hazards of Agent Orange. Unfortunately, the US, or Babylonian military, just as it did when using Agent Orange during the Vietnam War, has denied that Du weapons pose any significant hazard to civilian populations where they are used or American and Allied soldiers who deploy these weapons. Slovakia, this article's jumping around a bit. In the 2003 article, The War Against Ourselves, Major Doug Rock, former director of the U.S. Army's depleted uranium project and active in the Gulf War in 1991, said, "We didn't know anything about Du when the Gulf War started. As a warrior, you're listening to your leaders, and they're saying there are no health effects from the Du. The U.S. Army made me their expert. I went into the project with total intent to ensure they could use uranium munitions in war because I'm a warrior. What I saw as director of the project, doing the research and working with my own medical conditions and everybody else's, led me to one conclusion. Uranium munitions must be banned from the planet for eternity, just like you Edomites should be." In 2004, Juan Gonzalez reported in his New York Daily News story, The War's Littlest Victim, that the National Guardsman, Gerard Darren Matthew, returned from Vietnam suffering from mysterious illnesses and tested positive for uranium contamination. Shortly after his return, his wife, Janice, became pregnant and gave birth to a baby girl who was missing 3 fingers on her left hand and most of her right hand. In 2006, Associated Press documented the case of soldier Herbert Reed, who returned from Iraq very ill. As reported in U.S. Soldiers Are Sick of It, since Reed left Vietnam, his gums bleed, there's blood in his urine and in his stool. Bright light hurts his eyes, a tumor has been removed from his thyroid. The Associated Press disclosed about 30% of the 700,000 men and women who served in the First Gulf War still suffer baffling array of symptoms very similar to those reported by Reed's unit. Depleted uranium has long been suspected as a possible contributor to Gulf War syndrome. And again, the devil doesn't care about his own. The The US government knew the effects of Agent Orange on its own soldiers during Vietnam, but still used it, and you have soldiers suffering from the side effects of it, just like you have soldiers suffering from the side effects now of depleted uranium. Back in Revelation 6 and 4, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. And this is mainly speaking of these Edomites killing each other during World War I and World War II, but it can also refer to these Edomites indirectly killing their own soldiers by using these deadly weapons. In depleted uranium, use persists despite deadly side effects, Truth Out reported. In 2010, a BBC correspondent interviewed medical staff at the New Fallujah General Hospital. Iraqi physicians reported the excess cases of severe birth defects were increasing yearly since the 2004 siege of the town. The reporter visited the pediatric ward and described being stunned by the horrific number of birth defects he witnessed in their shocking severity. Children born with multiple heads, others paralyzed, seriously brain damaged, missing limbs, and with extra fingers and toes. And now let's go back to Google Images to look at the victims of depleted uranium. The wicked fruits of Esau Edom's labors. I mean, it should be self-evident who that son of perdition is. But no, 2/3 of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans out there think these so-called Caucasians are still your friends, but you're going to see when Jacob's trouble pops off and this devil comes down in great wrath on you. And if you think the radioactive dust that has poisoned soldiers and populations and permeated the ecosystems of the war-torn countries far away from America is not your problem, listen up. DU weapons have been tested by U.S. military at proving grounds and firing ranges in Arizona, Maryland, Indiana, and Vieques, Puerto Rico. That they should kill one another. Disturbingly, in the bucolic town in Concord, Massachusetts, birthplace of the American Revolution, famous for the shot heard round the world, and home of Henry David Thoreau and Walden Pond, hosts one of the nastiest Superfund sites in the country. The toxic nightmare resulted from the manufacture of DU weapons. The environmental magazine reported on the Concord Superfund site in 2004. Few know about the nuclear waste dump at 2229 Main Street, Slovakia. But this shady burg of 15,000 residents quietly struggle with its legacy. As the maker of depleted uranium slugs for the U.S. military's latest wars, the soil more than a mile from the nuclear dump is radioactive. A 1993 epidemiological study found the town's residents suffered higher rates of cancer than the state average. As of November 2012, the U.S. EPA reported the Superfund site located in Concord on a 46.4-acre site of the former Nuclear Metals Incorporated, or NMI, facility, after almost a decade of cleanup efforts, is still not completed. Conveniently, NMI went bankrupt before cleaning up the site, leaving U.S. taxpayers responsible for cleaning up the mess. The radioactive mess in Concord pales in comparison to the horrific radioactive pollution at the 586 square mile U.S. Department of Energy Hanford Nuclear Facility in central Washington State. In August 2012, Environment News Service reported 1 million gallons of radioactive waste has already leaked into the soil and groundwater, threatening the entire region and nearby Columbia River. In August 2012, a memo from U.S. Department of Energy inspectors to the Washington State Department of Ecology detailed new leaks of radioactive waste coming from double-shell storage tanks that were supposed to last another 40 years. The U.S. and the other countries producing nuclear waste have no safe, long-term strategy for dealing with the thousands of tons of radioactive waste accumulating each year. The majority of this dangerous material is stored on site at nuclear power stations that are vulnerable to hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes, and other potential disasters. That's pretty much it with this article. But as you can see, nothing good comes from you Edomites, only death and destruction. This is Isaiah 14 verse 5 through 8. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked whom the earth has been given into the hands of, the border of wickedness in Malachi 1 and 4. Esau, Edom, you so-called Caucasians, you red Hebrew Edomites. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, such as using Agent Orange and depleted uranium, among other horrific weapons. He that ruled the nations in anger by using these weapons on Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and also all the bloodshed you've committed against the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are the true children of Israel back during the times of slavery all the way up until today, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Once you Edomites are taken out of power, nobody's going to miss you. Even though these other nations are going to take part in that first 1,000 years of slavery with you, they're at least going to go back to their own lands